Topic: History. 1. Did you like history when you were young? Not really. To be honest, back then, history classes felt tedious and heavily focused on memorizing dates, battles, and historical figures. I think younger students enjoy history much more when it's taught through stories rather than endless timelines. 2. When was the last time you read about history? Quite recently, actually. I somehow fell into an internet rabbit hole after watching a Korean historical drama and ended up spending hours reading about Korean history and royal dynasties. What impressed me most was how their film industry can make historical stories feel so cinematic and emotionally engaging. It honestly made me wish Vietnam had more high-quality historical movies and series like that too. 3. Do you like history? Yeah, I do, although I wouldn't call myself a history buff or anything. I've just started finding history much more interesting recently because there are so many YouTube channels that explain historical events in a really vivid and easy-to-follow way. Just last month, one World War II video somehow led to another, and before I knew it, I'd spent hours learning about both World War I and II. Good storytelling and stunning visuals make history feel far more engaging than memorizing dry facts from textbooks. 4. Have you ever been to historical museums? Yeah, a few times, mostly during school trips. I remember finding ancient objects and old photographs surprisingly fascinating because they make history feel much more real and personal. Although I have to admit, after about 2 hours in a museum, my attention span starts emotionally leaving the building.
Topic: Reading. 1. Do you like reading? Not as much as I used to. When I was younger, I could completely disappear into a book and devour the entire book in one sitting. Now I somehow spend more time buying books than actually finishing them. I keep telling myself, this is the year I become a consistent reader again, and then the books just end up sitting on my shelf collecting dust. Judging me silently. 2. Do you prefer to read on paper or on a screen? I definitely prefer reading on paper because physical books feel more immersive and help me focus better. But realistically speaking, I always end up reading on my phone most of the time simply because it's more convenient. I mean, I have a really bad habit of scrolling through random content before bed and then regretting my life choices at 1 a.m. 3. When do you need to read carefully? And when not? I read very carefully when something carries emotional or legal importance, like contracts or handwritten cards from family members. With contracts, obviously I don't want to accidentally agree to something ridiculous. And handwritten messages feel personal and meaningful. So I naturally slow down and pay attention to every word. But if I'm reading random celebrity gossip online, scanning is more than enough. 4. Do you prefer scanning or detailed reading? It depends on the situation. As I said, I usually scan things that aren't very important, like social media posts or random online articles, because there's just too much information nowadays. But when something actually matters, like work documents, contracts, or meaningful messages from people I care about, I switch into detailed reading mode immediately.
Topic: Pets and animals. 1. What's your favorite animal? Why? Definitely dogs. I've had a dog named Milo for about 4 years now, and honestly, he sometimes acts more emotionally stable than the humans in my house. Dogs are incredibly loyal and affectionate, so they make great companions. 2. Where do you prefer to keep your pet? Indoors or outdoors? Mostly indoors because I'd feel terrible leaving Milo outside in the heat or heavy rain. He's been with my family for years, so at this point he honestly feels more like a younger child than a pet. That said, whenever we get too busy to bathe him properly, he can smell absolutely horrible. So on those days, let's just say he temporarily loses his indoor privileges. 3. Have you ever had a pet before? Yeah, but I actually had a pretty sad experience when I was younger. I used to have a tiny puppy that I was really attached to. But one day it was sold for meat without me knowing, which honestly upset me for a long time. Because of that, I didn't dare get emotionally attached to another dog again until recently. Now that Milo is my dog and not just a family pet bought by my parents, I feel much more protective of him because I know nobody can take him away from me. 4. What is the most popular animal in Vietnam? Probably domestic pets like dogs and cats. They're by far the most common because they're relatively easy to take care of and fit well into family life. Personally, though, I think I'll stick with dogs. Because I'm already struggling enough with one dramatic little creature at home.